guys, I'm Julie.
And I'm Jimmy.
And welcome to our show, Impulse Cash Flow, where we discuss all things real estate and investing for your financial freedom.
So today we're interviewing Steve Decker. Steve Decker is a 1031 exchange guru who's actually working with us on our current 1031 exchange. So he provided tons of valuable information. We just wanted to convey that information over to our viewers so you guys can reap the benefits of how to invest in real estate without paying taxes. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. So today we have Steven Decker. Steven Decker is a 1031 exchange guru. He's everything he's doing is all things real estate with 1031. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Steve. Welcome.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me today, guys.
So Steve, hey, can you tell us a little bit more about you and like where you're from, like where you grew up, and then how you got into real estate?
Yeah, so I was actually born and raised in Los Angeles. So I'm a Southern California boy. Ended up going to college in North Carolina. My mom's from North Carolina, so during the summers we'd go back there, visit aunts and uncles and whatnot. But every summer I decided, hey, look, I can't deal with the humidity out there, so I would come back home. And I ended up working for a 1031 exchange company after my sophomore year of college. And then how I found this company was actually my best friend growing up. His father, who was also my soccer coach at one point, he owned a 1031 exchange company based in West LA. So I kind of got, duped into their family business, so to speak. Every summer I'd come back home, I'd, work in the file room. The next summer I'd, work my way up a little bit further, do stuff with their accounting department. And by about a month before I graduated college, they called me up and said, "Hey, Steve, the market's going gangbusters. We need some help." And I said, they said, "Do you want a job?" I said, "Absolutely. What kid doesn't want to make 35 grand a year with a 401k right out of college?" So,
Right.
So I got suckered into it, literally in college, and it's been my only real career. So I've been in the exchange industry now for 18 years. So yeah, born and raised in SoCal.
That's awesome.
And now I live down in Carlsbad, which is incredible. Love it down here. So
yeah. Give it up for SoCal. Yeah, we're in Laguna Niguel.
Oh, very nice.
Really
Very
close,
nice.
yeah.
Far down the 1-5.
Well, awesome. So I have a lot of friends who are asking me about 31, and people are wondering what 1031 is. And could you kind of explain, the basics of what a 1031 is, what it means, how it's valuable, pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. So a 1031 exchange is typically used when you're going to be selling a piece of investment real estate. So it doesn't matter if it's residential investment properties, it could be a single family home, a duplex, a triplex. It could be anything commercial real estate. So, multifamily, industrial, office, retail. It could also be vacant land. But typically if you just sold that piece of real estate and you decided, hey, look, I'm just going to cash out. I'm not going to buy any more real estate. The government comes in and they stick their hand in your pocket, to be blunt with you. They generally take up to 4 different taxes. They'll take federal capital gains tax. They'll take state income tax, if applicable. There's 41 states that have some level of state income tax. And, for us, we live in the state with the highest state income tax of any state in the country. We like to be number 1 here in California. But then there's also a healthcare tax and depreciation recapture. Well, 1031 is actually a section of the IRS tax code that allows you to defer paying those taxes as long as you go out and stimulate the real estate economy. So whenever I'm trying to explain this to a client, I say, look, the easiest way to explain it is, if Jimmy sells an investment property and he sells it for $1 million, in order for him to not pay any of these taxes at all, the government basically says, all right, Jimmy, I'm not going to make you pay taxes, but I want you to go out and stimulate the real estate economy. So if you guys go out and buy something for $1 million or more, or a combination of properties that adds up to $1 million or more, you get to defer paying all of those taxes. So you get to defer the federal capital gains, the California ordinary income, the depreciation recapture, and that healthcare tax. So normally when you blend all of those rates together, if you just decided, hey, look, I really want to do my civic duty and pay my taxes, you would typically be giving on the low end probably 30% of your gain back to the government in some form of tax or another. Or if you're coming out of a property in a state like California, Hawaii, Oregon, New York, New Jersey, Minnesota, those are all states with really high state income taxes, you could be giving upwards of 41, 42% of your overall gain back to the government in some form of tax or another. So I always tell my clients, I say, look, I'm not a fan of giving Uncle Sam, and in my particular case, Uncle Newsom, anything more than they actually deserve, right? So if I'm going to stay in real estate, using a 1031 exchange to preserve all of the wealth that I've built up is kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to sell this single family rental and I'm going to reinvest in a duplex, or I'm going to reinvest in a couple of single family homes in a different state. So with 1031 exchanges, you can mix and match the property types as much as you want. There's no restrictions on the property types. You can go from residential investment real estate to commercial or vice versa. You can move about the country as you see fit. We have seen it.
Wait, can you say it? So you're saying I could purchase something out of the country?
No, anywhere in the country.
In the country, okay.
In the country, yeah. So if you
Okay.
sell U.S. real estate, you do have to buy U.S. real estate. So like if you sell a property in California and you've always wanted to buy a property in New Hampshire, you could absolutely do that through a 1031 exchange. And there are actually 2 U.S. territories that you can buy and sell in as well. You can buy and sell in Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands as well.
What about Puerto Rico?
So unfortunately, Puerto Rico, the Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa, they're all out. They actually have their own tax laws. They don't follow the U.S. tax code, even though they're territories or commonwealths of the United States. They have their own set of tax laws, so 1031 does not apply to them. So if you sell California and you want to go buy something in Puerto Rico, unfortunately, you would not be able to do that through a 1031 exchange.
Gotcha.
But,
I have a question.
Yeah, fire away.
So if you sell a property for $1 million, but you owe like $300,000 on it, do you have to reinvest that $700,000 that you profited on, or you have to reinvest the full $1 million?
So both. You have to reinvest all of your equity, so all of the cash. So in your example, the $700,000 of equity that came out of the property, you need to reinvest all of that, and you need to end up with another piece of property that's $1 million or more. So again, it's like a trade-off. Sometimes my clients think I only have to reinvest my gain, or I only have to reinvest my equity. That's not a win for the government. I normally tell clients, they ask me, they say, well, why does the government even allow for this? You would think logically they would want you to just pay the taxes anytime you sell. But if you think about it logically, if you sell a property for $1 million and then you exchange it, you're usually going to go up. So like if you buy something for $1.2 million, you're paying higher property taxes, which the government likes. You're paying transfer tax, which the government likes. And you're probably generating more income, which means you're paying more income tax, which the government also likes. So it is a win for the government, but it is also a win for the individual investor, people like yourself and myself, because we don't have to pay all of those capital gains taxes as well.
Right.
So what if we invested $900,000? Would you be paying taxes on the remaining $100,000 that you kept to yourself?
That's a great question. A lot of times our clients don't realize that they can do what's called a partial 1031. So like in your example, if you don't want to spend the full $1 million, you're looking to downsize a little bit, or maybe you just need $100,000 to go buy yourself a Porsche. If you want to do that, you can pull that money at the close of escrow, pocket the $100,000. Now on that $100,000, you are going to pay some taxes. So you'll be paying those long-term capital gains taxes and the state income taxes, but you could defer the taxes on the remaining $900,000. So a partial exchange, a lot of our clients are using those, particularly if people have racked up debt or they've been unemployed recently and they just need a little bit of, kind of walking around money. So
would that be considered or called a boot?
That would be called boot. Yeah, that's kind of just industry jargon. It's kind of like a slang term for any cash that's left over at the end of the exchange or that goes unreinvested into the next property. They call it potentially taxable boot. Yeah.
So what if we have the cash and if we happen to deploy it back into the business, is that then a tax write-off?
What's that?
Could that be?
So you'd have to check with your CPA on that. It glitched there for just a little bit, but you would probably be able to do that, but you would want to make sure that your CPA was on board with that decision and was willing to help you write that off or help offset that. Just as a quick little side note, I'm not a CPA, not a tax advisor. I know it can be dangerous, but yeah, I mean, we do have some clients that do that.
No, perfect, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question is so let's just say I sell my property. Then, do I close out escrow and the funds go into my account, or do I use it like a custodian, or, can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you do have to have a custodian. We are what's called a qualified intermediary. So anytime that you do a 1031 exchange, the IRS requires that you have a neutral third party that has not worked as a direct agent of you within the last 2 years and is not a related party to you. So you have to have what the IRS refers to as a qualified intermediary. So that's what my company is. We are a qualified intermediary. Some people call us an accommodator or an exchange facilitator, all synonyms for the same thing. The reason that we exist is because in the tax code, the IRS says that you cannot have either constructive receipt or actual receipt of your funds. So basically the government doesn't trust you with your own money. So anytime that you do a 1031 exchange, you've got to involve a company like ours. Now we typically become involved in your transaction once you're in escrow to sell your property. So if you're selling a property at 123 Main Street and you open escrow with ABC Escrow, all you do is call me up and say, okay, Steve, I'm selling my property. I've opened with Susie Smith at ABC Escrow, and then we prepare a set of exchange documents that have to be in place prior to the closing. And then at the close of escrow, all of the equity from the sale does have to come over to us. We put that money into an individual segregated bank account, and it sits in the equivalent of a commercial checking account until you call me up and say, all right, Steve, now I'm ready to go out and buy my next bigger, better property. So that's what our main role within the real estate transaction is as it pertains to 1031 exchanges.
Oh, awesome.
And people have 45 days to make that transaction, correct?
Yeah, so there's 2 major time periods that you have to stick to anytime that you do an exchange, and both of those time periods begin once you close escrow on the property that you're selling. So like if you guys sell a property, let's say you close escrow on October 1st, you would have 45 calendar days from October 1st to identify property that you wanted to buy, and you would have 180 calendar days from October 1st to actually close on one or more of the identified properties. And that 45 days comes quick. I mean, particularly in a market like this, there's really no flexibility with regard to those time periods. Yeah.
So can you elaborate just a little bit more? Like when you say identify, is that like, hey, I want to buy this house, or is that locking it up under contract, or like what is the identify?
So we don't technically have to be under contract during the 45 days, but in a market like this where inventory is moving extremely fast and inventory is pretty low, I generally do recommend to my clients to get under contract to buy something within the 45 days. In fact, just to give you a little overview, right now in Southern California, our clients are averaging only 40 days total to complete their exchange. So most of our clients are actually closing the property they want to buy before they even get to the end of their 45-day identification period. So now what the IRS means by identify, we're going to give your clients a form. On that form, they're going to write in the addresses that they're targeting. So they may identify their top 2 or 3 properties. 123 Main Street, 456 Main Street, 789 Main Street. They have to sign, date, and deliver that back to us by no later than the end of their 45th day. And unfortunately, if their 45th day falls on a weekend or a holiday, it does not defer to the next business day. Those dates are set in stone. The only time the IRS ever extends them, because I get that question a lot, hey, can I have an extension to my 45 days or 180? The answer is no. The only time the IRS ever extends the time periods is in the case of either military deployment or in the case of a federally declared disaster, earthquakes, fires, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, acts of terrorism. So highly unlikely. Yeah.
So let's say, going back to my other question, where if we reinvested $900,000 and we wanted to keep $100,000 because say I want a Range Rover or something,
yep.
And I changed my mind on that. I forgot what I was going to ask.
And you put it back in. If the answer is, can I put the money back in and buy something else? The answer is no. Once you
I know what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, do you have to pay the taxes on that immediately? Or is that something that happens 6, 9, 12 months later?
So you typically pay the taxes on it when you file your 2021 tax return. So by April 15th of next year, that's when you would typically pay the taxes on it. Now, there are some states like ours, California, where there's actually a tax withholding. So at the close, if you pocketed $100,000, escrow would actually withhold 3.33% of that $100,000, and they would forward that on to the California Franchise Tax Board to be used as a credit towards your taxes.
Got
The
it.
reason they do that is because there were a lot of out-of-state investors that were buying properties here, selling them for a profit, taking their money back to New York or wherever they're from, and basically giving the middle finger to the state of California and say, catch me if you can. And
Got it.
California had a hard time tracking people down, so they implemented a withholding about 20 years ago. So
Got it.
got it. So yeah, so those time periods, they're set in stone. That's the number one thing that my clients like to yell at me about. They think that like Steve Decker is the jerk that's only giving them 45 days to identify. I always tell them the time period's been the same since 1984. I was 3 years old when the IRS put this into place. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. But the reason that 45 days is so short is because the IRS either wants you to fail and pay your taxes, or they want you to immediately reinvest, because the sooner you reinvest, the sooner you pay property taxes, transfer taxes, and you start generating income again. So the last thing the government wants you to do is sit stagnant with your money.
Sure.
Got it.
Cool, Steve. So do you have any tips, if someone's, about to start this process, kind of like, do you have any one tip that you could share with our viewers on what's the best way to, go throughout this process?
Well, I'll give you a couple tips actually.
Okay.
Definitely talk to your CPA before you sell. Find out exactly what your tax liability would be. I always recommend to tell people, talk to your CPA or tax advisor before you sell your real estate. Also, engage us. Put in a phone call to me. I can help walk and talk you through this process and help you decide if this is even something that's worth your while or something that you really want to go down the path of. So those are the things that I would normally recommend. Engage your professionals in advance. And in a market like this, I've been telling a lot of my clients, maybe on the property you're selling, take out a longer than normal escrow. Instead of a 30-day escrow, maybe take out a 45 or a 60-day escrow. Because the sooner you close escrow, the sooner the clock starts ticking on your 1031 exchange. So if I can take out a 60-day escrow on the property that I'm selling, I essentially have 60 days to go shopping, and then after the close, I have another 45. So I can buy myself a little bit of time. So those are some of the things that we've been encouraging clients to do, particularly in a market like this.
Wow, thanks, Steve. Those are some good tips. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Where do you see the real estate market in about a year from now?
I think it's going to be fairly similar to what we're at now. With inflation, I do think that interest rates will probably spike up a little bit. I think that'll cool off the market just a little bit, which I think would actually be kind of welcomed. I do think that there are some things on the horizon that could potentially negatively impact the real estate market. Like right now, there are a few different proposals that are being kind of bandied about within Congress to either limit 1031 exchanges. There's a proposal to raise capital gains tax. There's a proposal that would eliminate the step up in basis upon wealth. I think all three of those things would negatively affect the real estate economy as a whole. Not sure. I don't think 1031 will get capped. So that's a benefit, particularly for me because I'm in exchanges. I do think that capital gains tax rates will probably increase a little bit. And I'm hopeful that the step up in basis will not be eliminated, because that will negatively affect, particularly the baby boomer generation as it's starting to pass along. There's going to be a huge transfer of wealth in the next 10 to 15 years. If you eliminate that step up in basis, I think that could potentially crush the real estate market. I don't see us falling off of a map like 2008, but real estate's a cycle, right? We're now 12, 13 years into an up cycle. I do think that it'll start to taper off a little bit, but I don't foresee a crash in the market, so to speak.
Nice.
Frankly, I'd welcome a little bit of a slowdown because we're going nuts right now.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
You were saying it earlier. Was that 1031 transaction was that supposed to happen at the end of 2021?
So in May, President Biden threw out a proposal to put a cap on 1031 exchanges, basically saying that you could only defer up to $500,000 of gain annually, up to $1 million of gain if you're married and filing a joint tax return. So I think that would, for the most part, with residential real estate exchanges, that would be okay. But I think that would significantly crush the commercial real estate market. Now, that was merely a proposal that Biden threw out there. The Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee have been bandying about different ideas. Just 2 weeks ago, the Senate had what they refer to as a vote-a-rama, which is basically like a verbal straw poll of different ideas and different proposals that are out there. The last proposal of the night was brought to the floor by a senator out of Louisiana named John Kennedy, and he proposed to keep 1031 exchanges completely intact. which actually won unanimous support. There was a 99-0 vote in favor of just keep leaving 1031 alone. So now that's not a binding agreement, it's non-binding, it's just kind of a verbal, but it does give us a pretty good idea that most of our senators and a lot of our members of the House are in support of the 1031 exchange industry. Because exchanges stimulate the real estate economy.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to move into the next round. It's called Would You Rather. So
Okay.
we got this one from our kids. They love playing Would You Rather. And so we thought it would be entertaining, to have that part of the podcast. So would you like to start us off?
Sure. Hot dog or hamburger?
Born and raised in LA, Dodger dog, all day.
Would you fly to the moon or would you stay on land?
I don't dislike flying, but I would stay on land. The moon, I don't think is for me.
Okay, classic car or muscle car?
Can I do classic muscle car?
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah, that's
65 Mustang or a 73 Firebird?
Well, it was either like a 6'4" Impala Cruiser, like cruising down the street, like maybe on like 3 wheels.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Beach or mountains?
I'm Irish, so I burn like nobody's business, so I'd probably say the mountains.
Oh, okay.
Stocks or real estate?
Stocks are okay, so that's a tough one because we're obviously on a real estate podcast here, so I'm sure I'm supposed to say real estate. But I mean, any good investor, in my opinion, has both, right? You want to have a diversified portfolio of both real estate and stocks. So I would say, I like both. Real estate is obviously I'm partial to because I'm in real estate and it's a physical, tangible asset, right? I mean, I can't live in Apple stocks if the world goes to hell in a handbasket, but I can move into one of my rental properties if it does.
Sure.
Also a little bit of crypto, mixed in a little bit of that too. So
that's going up. Let's see here, single family or multifamily?
Well, so if I'm living in it, single family. If I'm investing in it, I'd probably invest in multifamily just because I think it's probably a little bit more recession proof. When the market does take a dip, like in 2008, 9, and 10, when the market really took a dump, multifamily properties were the one market segment that were doing really well, because if you lose your house, you still need a place to live, so you become a renter. So I would probably go multifamily.
Absolutely, good choice.
Active income or passive income?
I'm so busy, I would probably go passive income at this point. I'd rather have passive income any day than have to actually work my property. So,
I get it. All right, cool. Book or audiobook?
I'm more of the I want the physical book. So I want the legit hardcore, the hard copy of
Tangible.
Yeah.
Flipping pages.
That's it.
And webinar or seminar?
Seminar. I want to be in person. Webinars are cool. I should probably say webinar again because we're doing this podcast, but I'd much rather be there with you guys in person. So I'd say seminar.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, real estate. However you want to answer, what you feel is best that you like to do.
I detest PowerPoint. So the one downturn or downside, we're really big on education. That's how we get a lot of our clients. I go into offices and speak with brokers and attorneys and realtors. Transitioning to the Zoom world and the Google Hangouts world was, a bit challenging because I absolutely hate PowerPoint and people always want graphics, right? So I'm like, okay, we're just going to click through all these slides and you guys are probably going to fall asleep, but here we go. So I'd rather be in person.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Steve, so what do you do for fun?
So I hang out with the fam a lot. I've got 2 kids of my own, two daughters, got a 12-year-old and a 2-year-old. My 2-year-old's an absolute maniac. My 12-year-old is also a maniac. One's a dancer, one's a gymnast. My wife is a former gymnast. So, I mean, we're a pretty active family. Love to hang out with the family, love to go get cocktails with the wife, date nights and whatnot. So that occupies almost all of my free time is the wife and kids. So,
yeah. You showing them how to do cartwheels, backflips and stuff?
It ain't me. my wife maybe, yeah, but it's definitely not me. I was a soccer player, so if you want to kick a soccer ball, that's me.
Yeah,
if you want to go
all day long.
Something, that's my wife. Yeah.
That's funny.
Okay, and what's your favorite book? It could be real estate or business. If you had one book that you could recommend people read.
Well, my favorite book for leisure, and it's not very leisurely, For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. So I was actually an English lit major in college of all things, and somehow managed to get into real estate. But For Whom the Bell Tolls is my favorite, kind of book that I would read in my free time. As far as business, it would be How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Definitely.
Oh, very nice. That's cool. What would you say your future goals are?
To retire young.
Yeah, let's go.
I want to optimally. I'd like to retire by 60.
Tomorrow.
My wife and I'd love to retire tomorrow. I'm not. Hopefully, I don't look 60, but yeah, I'd love to retire. Still enjoy my retirement. My wife and I actually got married down in Belize. We love it down there, so we've always talked about maybe going down there and buying a spot. Maybe spending 6 months a year down there, 6 months back up here. So that's definitely one of our top goals for sure.
Oh, that's a great goal.
Yeah, that'd be a dream.
Yeah, I want to go to Belize. What's your biggest learning experience with the whole real estate, and or if you do invest, like investing as well?
Biggest learning experience. So I learned very early on the value of property managers because one of my first investment properties, I decided, well, it's right down the street from where I live, so I'll just manage the thing myself. And with my busy job as is, having to deal with phone calls and text messages of, hey, can you come, fix my toilet, or hey, can you replace my burnt out light bulb, or hey, can you help me hang a TV? Or I've had some pretty challenging tenants over the years, and finally got fed up and decided, you know what, 6 to 8% to a property manager, well worth it. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, property management, it's fun, but it's not really fun all at the wrong time.
That's right.
Well, and stuff always goes wrong at the worst time. Like the worst time.
Oh yeah, every time I was out of town, something inevitably would go wrong. I'm like, okay, call this electrician.
Or like a Friday night or a Saturday morning.
Yeah, exactly.
He literally has to fly to Texas after this because a rodent ate through our ceiling.
Oh geez.
Yes.
Time to get a property manager out there.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome, Steve. So thank you so much. I know time is valuable, so we definitely respect and honor the time that you spent with us today. So if you could, I'm sure I have a lot of friends who are probably interested in doing 1031 or finding out more information. And so how can they get a hold of you?
So as you guys pointed out ahead of time, I'm not really much on social media, but I'm easily accessible via email. You can look me up on our website, which is just www.ipx1031.com. Give me a call, shoot me a text. My cell phone is 619-246-8187. So here to help answer any questions or concerns, or help just kind of walk and talk and guide you through the process. So whatever you guys need, happy to help out. Just let me know how I can step in, and we'll get it done.
Wow! Oh my gosh! Incredible information. We learned so much. Steve provided so much valuable information, right?
Yeah, and I think going through our own process of selling a duplex and now reinvesting that money in a crazy time to buy. Our friends think we're absolutely insane right now for investing, but I think everything that Steve discusses lays it out of why we're purchasing right now.
Exactly. To where you can level up and just keep growing further and further and deferring your equity and your capital gains to build, create legacy wealth. So unbelievable. Please, his information will be down in the link below. And thank you very much for watching our show. And remember, impulse is not an impulse buy. Impulse is a desire to act and think and grow rich. Peace.